We're here on the dairy farm of Noel O'Connor in Kilcooley, Ardfert in North Kerry. Over 4 years ago, Noel's herd suffered a serious outbreak of TB, which led to total depopulation. Ever since, he and his family have been picking up the pieces and getting back into milking. All the while, though, they've been living in fear of another outbreak of this devastating disease. Noel O'Connor, thank you so much for having us on your farm here in Kilcooley, Ardfert. Can you tell us a little bit about the farm firstly, Noel?
Our farm's in one block here. We have a nice block of ground in one block. We wasn't tillage formerly, we were a mixed farm up until the late 90s, and we decided to kind of go more into dairying at that stage, I suppose. And when quotas came off, we kind of expanded a small bit again, but not a whole lot. Tell
us about your journey with TB, Noel, and TB has ravaged this farm, but we'll get to that in a second. But tell us when it first came on the radar here in Kilcooley.
About 10 or 11 years ago, we had a herd test, and we had one reactor and one doubtful, and we were locked up for 4 months. We had 2 clear tests, and we had no more issues again for 3 or 4 years, for 3 years I think after that. Then we had another reactor, another doubtful, and they were removed, and again we had 2 clear tests and we're back to normal.
But things got very, very serious in 2021, and that was all, a red flag was raised when a couple of weanlings were sold here from the farm. Was that what happened?
That's right, yeah. We sold weanlings, we tested weanlings in October of 2020, and we sold 10 of them coming up to Christmas that year. Then a few weeks after that, we had a herd test, and the herd test was clear. There was no issues. The guy I sold the weanlings to sold a few of them on again, and from there, they had a herd test. Then I think it was in April or May, and the 4 that he had sold on to that man showed up as reactors, and so he was restricted. Then his herd was locked up until they could be tested. So he rang me and said, look, there could be an issue there. So I said, that's grand, look. So I heard no more about it again. He had a herd test then, and the remaining 6 weanlings that we'd sold him went down. So at that stage I got a call from the department saying that we were restricted pending a herd test. So we had a herd test then early in the summer. I think it was, could have been June or July, and we weren't all that worried about it. We thought, right, look, we have a few reactors, it's looking likely. So the first round of cows went in, and the first cow was a reactor. The vet looked at me, the second cow was a reactor, and the vet looked at me again, and this third one was a reactor, the fourth one was clear, 5th one was a reactor. And the first round or 2 were just like that. We ended up losing about a quarter of the herd in the first test. Then we had blood tests, and we lost a good share more. I think there was 12 cows and weanlings and calves went in blood tests. And so we were locked up.
And what was your reaction, Noel? Because you had come off a clear test only the previous December, so within 6 months you're talking about depopulating your herd, you know?
Yeah, shock, deep shock. It really kicks you. We thought after the first set of blood tests that we would have most of the reactors gone. So at this stage, over a third of the herd gone. So we said, look, there might be 3 or 4 or 5, whatever else like that. But it was up into double figures again, right across the herd in the next skin test. We got bloods done, and at that stage, we were over 50% of the milking herd were taken. So we were offered depopulation, and we had a couple of days to think about it, if we wanted to accept it or not. There wasn't really an option as far as we could see that we would have to take depopulation.
Bring me back to that day. What was that like?
Hard, yeah, very hard.
What do you remember about it, Noel? Was it the silence?
I'm trying to forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the silence in the yard. Oh. The lack of sound was the hardest. When the animals are in, there's always a cow snorting or coughing or noising, scratching her head. She'd come up to you and she'd give you a nudge for a scratch or whatever else. But there was nothing, just...
Everything gone?
Yeah, everything gone.
And you'd young animals on farm as well, Noel, and obviously with the way that TB reactors are treated, that the younger animals had to be put down on farm, which
Yeah,
is very upsetting too.
we had 10 reactors. 10 of the calves showed up as reactors over the tests. That was very hard. Yeah, yeah. They had no chance. Like, there's no easy part to it. It was a hard decision, but it was the right decision to make. But that still doesn't make it any easier.
You took some time then, Noel, to take stock after that happened to you.
We did. We discussed buying in a herd of cows, a complete herd that would be clearance sales every so often, and you pick up a herd maybe and buy in a few more animals with it, or bring a herd and sell off a few animals from it if there was too many. I was worn out, I suppose. There's lots of negatives. There's no positives in TB. There is none.
What made you want to go back in and buy in more animals and start up the milking parlour again?
The kids were interested. I'm still young enough that there's a good few years left to me yet.
Were you surprised how much of your identity was wound up with cows and bound to cows?
Hugely. Yeah, that was a huge surprise. that was a huge surprise.
But you're clearly a man who loves cows, Noel, because you know these girls by name as well, and you would have known your previous herd by name, and you have that relationship with them. But obviously the scars that it's left you with, probably still open wounds rather than them being healed even at this stage. That's probably still a concern for you here on the farm every time a test comes around.
It is. Like, you see the letter coming in the door, you look at the dates and you're trying to decide, well, will I have the date at the start as soon as I can and get this over with, or will I leave it stretch out and just delay the inevitable? Because for our feeling here is that it's just a matter of time before we go down again.
Hundreds of millions of euro have been spent on the TB eradication programme, Noel, over decades at this stage, and unfortunately we're seeing incidence rate, reactors going up in the last few years, and it's going in the wrong direction. What would you like to see being done?
There's no single thing to control TB. You have a whole series of small steps that every single one of them has to be used. You can't say, right, I'll fence off the badger set, I'll leave the water troughs the way they are. Everything you have to go from make sure the water troughs are inaccessible, raising them up from badger height, fencing off badger sets. We had a reducing rate of TB up to 5 or 6 years ago. With the restrictions that were there 5 or 6 years ago, what has changed in the meantime? That has to be looked at. What policy differences have happened then that are affecting us now 5 years down the line?
Finally, Noel, how are you today?
I'm good.
You've come out the other side of it.
We have. It's been a rough journey, yeah. But what you do, like the past in the past, you have to make do with what you have. You can hear the bird song here in the background. Who would want to be anywhere else?
We wish you all the very best, Noel. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks very much.